Hola, I'm Gerson Borrero, editor-at-large at City and State, and we're joined now by Steve Cassidy, who happens to represent the Uniform Fires Association of New York City. Steve, the administration is going to think that you're a troublemaker, that being the city administration, Mayor de Blasio. You've come out with a report. It's an analysis of the 2015 FDNY firefighter-led emergency response operations, which we have here, and it's March 2016. You're making some serious accusations in the increase citywide, the 5 boroughs, in terms of the response time from the fire department. And you've detailed a report that actually, to me and to New Yorkers, may be startling. What is it? What's the main focus here that New Yorkers should know in terms of when they call on 911, there's a fire in my house, in my apartment? Can you break it down for us in terms of what people should know right now that's happening?
Well, there's 2 things. First, I may be a troublemaker, but
you're doing your job.
But I'm doing my job. The other part of this is the fire department's own numbers. The fire department posts 2 sets of numbers. One is their response times, and the second is the real numbers, which I'm reflecting here in my report from 2014, 2015, that are hidden away on their website under Local Law 119. You got to go back to the Bloomberg administration to fully get this. The Bloomberg administration made a change in how they handled incoming emergencies as regards to the fire department. It used to be, if you dialed 911 and you said my house was on fire or my mother's having a heart attack, the call would be immediately transferred to the fire department. And then the clock would start. The Bloomberg administration and nobody before them counted those 5 or 6 seconds. What the Bloomberg administration changed when Commissioner Cassidy was there was that they then decided to let the 911 operators begin the interrogation. And they didn't count that time, and they said their response times went down, and I said they went up. 2 years later, they admitted that under Local Law 119, when the council forced their hand, that end-to-end response times were dramatically higher. We're 2 years into the de Blasio administration. They know what the real numbers are. They continue to be hidden on the fire department's website. It's time for the public and elected officials to have a debate about real response times in the city of New York. And are these numbers acceptable? I don't think they are. And I don't think any elected official in the city will think so. Gerson and I think we have to have a debate about what's a real response time and what's acceptable.
2 things. One is the public, so that we're clear on this, Steve. I don't want to misrepresent, and you're saying that it's here, and you refer to, it's in page 12 of your report. The fire department actually has this online, on site, and they've admitted as such, but why is it that people don't know about it? Why is it that elected officials haven't really gotten upset about this?
Well, because it's hidden under Local Law 119 on their website. You would have to go and know that you're looking for Local Law 119, which is the city council law mandating end-to-end response times being reported by the fire department.
Are you telling me that the city council members are not monitoring this either?
I think they are. I think Elizabeth Crowley, who's the chair of Fire and Criminal Justice, knows. She recently had a hearing about EMS response times, which are even higher than these numbers. Listen, the department is reporting 4 minutes and 30 seconds for a medical emergency in the real time is 8 minutes and 11 seconds.
So that is, I call and I tell you, I have a son, daughter, my wife, my grandmother, whoever it is having a heart attack or is having a medical issue, and then they ask me pertinent questions that they have to the 911. So it could take 3 to 5 minutes, and those 3 to 5 minutes are not being counted in terms of the response time. Well, they're being
counted in the 8 minutes and 11 seconds. The real response time counts everything from the time you dial 911 till the fire department shows up in front of your house.
Why is that important?
Because that's how long it takes to get somebody to your house when you notify us, the city, there's an emergency. That's a real response time. So if you don't count the 2 minutes that you spend on the phone with the 911 operator and the department says we were there in 5 minutes or 6 minutes instead of 7 or 8, well, you're waiting for me to show up if your house is on fire or your mother's having a heart attack. Those each and every second counts. So we need to know what the real response times are. The department has them. We put them together in a paper to highlight the 2 separate numbers that they list. The second one is the real number. And I think elected officials, the 5 borough presidents, city council members, Tish James, the controller, I think they all need to weigh in on whether or not these numbers are acceptable. I don't think they are. And I think there's 2 things to solve them. One is the department has to go back to the old way of immediately transferring the calls to the fire department dispatchers. I think that'll save 20 or 30 seconds. And the second part is they need more resources. They got to have a dialogue about how they tackle these increased response times, which is largely due to the number of calls that have flooded the fire department over the last several years. Last year, busiest year in the history of the fire department, up 12% from 2014, which was the busiest year in the history of the fire department. So the numbers are up dramatically, Gerson. I think it's deliberately, directly attributable to the number of people live in New York City. More than ever before. The dramatic increase. The dramatic increase. Look at what's happening in Queens and Brooklyn and Manhattan.
Right.
And they're not even finished. Wait till they finish the west side of Manhattan. From 29th Street to 37th Street, they've got about 8 high-rises going up. Nobody's living there yet. They're going to put more and more people over there, and yet there's no committed resources from the fire department. No new firehouses, no new ambulance stations. I mean, something's got to give.
You referred to the prior administration, Mayor Bloomberg's administration. I assume that you've also taken that into account and brought this to the attention of the current administration, that being Mayor de Blasio's administration, from day one. Where did that kind of conversation, what have you told them? Have you said, look, this is something left from the prior administration? What is it that you've asked them to do? Have they done it? Have they listened to you? Obviously they haven't, but why don't you think, have you heard, you just issued a report today. Have you already heard from them? Are they moving something forward? Is there any other public official? You mentioned the borough presidents, you mentioned the public advocate, you mentioned also the controller. Who needs to step up on this? Is it a responsibility that everybody should be held accountable, or is it just at the steps of City Hall and the mayor's office?
Well, listen, the mayor and his team and the fire commissioner know that I believe they immediately need to go back to the old system of answering the phone calls, because everybody, not just me, believes that will lower response times. The second part is they need more resources, in my view, to deal with the increase of the total number of calls that are coming into the fire department. I mean, it used to be that 400,000 was a lot of calls. We got 580,000 phone calls last year to the New York City Fire Department. That's not even counting the EMS. That's separate. They got over 1 million calls. This is a dramatic increase in people calling for the fire department's resources, and that's fine. That's our job. But if response times are an indication of how we're doing, then they have to look at the real response times and say, in some categories, we're not doing good enough.
I read the report. As I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, this is of concern citywide, and everyone in the city is subject to these kind of delays, and they're also, nobody's immune. It doesn't matter what borough you live in.
Nobody's immune. Depending on the category, response times are higher or lower. I mean, the Bronx has the highest response times for medical emergencies, but I think most elected officials in the Bronx know there's a problem. I think when they see this report, they're going to be stunned at just how high it is.
Have you given it to the city council?
Yeah, the city council has gotten our report today. We emailed it to everybody. The borough presidents have received it, the controller, the public advocate. All of the key elected officials have this report as of today. And I want to start a dialogue, which is this okay with them? I don't think it is. I really don't think it is.
It looks like you've already gone, at least some calls, some meetings you've had. I'm going to assume that you've had that. What do you need from the administration right now? Further dialogue, hearings, or action?
Well, I think we need action on how the 911 calls are answered. The old way has not been working. I think immediately they need to go back to the old system. When somebody dials 911 and the operator says what the operator should say, what is your emergency? And when they say that, and they say fire or medical emergency, call should be transferred immediately. That will lower response times. I'm sure of it. It will certainly ensure that firefighters get better information and the appropriate resources. By the way, Gerson, you don't want two engines and 2 ladder companies coming to your house.
Why not?
Unless you need them, right? For a medical emergency, you don't, right? And we don't need the opposite, which is not enough resources coming to your house when you need more. So part of dispatching the right amount of resources is getting them out the door quickly and assigning the right amount. You don't want too many for a medical emergency, and you don't want too little for a fire.
Well, this is going to cause a lot of New Yorkers to lose some sleep, and I think that City Hall definitely has to take a look at this. So does the City Council. It is, I think, an alarming report of concern to all New Yorkers, and if that's the case, it could have maybe saved some lives.
There's one other thing. This report only reflects call to curb response times, meaning from the time you dial 911 till the time a fire department vehicle pulls up in front of where you live. If you're on the 20th floor of a building, They're not accounting for how long it takes them to get from the curb.
You really want New Yorkers to lose sleep, don't you?
No, I want them to know.
So how long does that take? Let's say you get close to the curb, it takes 10 minutes. So what does that add? They put the gear on, they have to walk up, the elevator's not working?
Yeah, sure. If your house is on fire, it's going to take another 4 or 5 minutes to get up there. We get a line stretched. If it's a medical emergency, probably 2 or 3 minutes. But the reality is, they stop the clock. That doesn't mean they're in front of your door knocking on your door. I believe that's a real response time, and that's a debate for another time. But for now, we need to have a real discussion about what they're reporting as their total response time. Is it acceptable? I don't think it is.
Steve Cassidy, not holding back on what needs to be done. Mayor de Blasio, we hope you're watching, or at least Tony Shore is over there. I mean, you are running the city, right, Deputy Mayor? So we'll see you soon, Steve, and thanks for the report. I think you can get a copy. What's your website?
www.ufanyc.org.
Okay. For City and State New York, I'm Gerson Borrero. We'll see you next time.